This is Hard Parking, sponsored by Right Honda and Right Toyota out of Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm host Jhae Pfenning, recording from my home studio in Gilbert, Arizona. Coming up on today's show, Chase Heath visited me in studio, came into town from California for the Southwest Speed Festival that we previewed last weekend. This was on Friday that he came through, so we're going to talk about that. Fun conversation. His brain goes a million miles an hour. I think you're going to learn not only a lot about him, but about some of the stuff that he does, which is really kind of cool. And we talk about cars a little bit. But before we get to that, a man named Wayne Gerdes has broken his own world record. You may have seen this in other publications, but keeping to the car portion of this podcast, the world record is driving across the country, averaging 93.158 miles per gallon in a late model Toyota Prius. I tried to figure out, okay, so it's 3,711 miles, 93.157 miles per gallon. What was his average speed? I even asked ChatGPT because I hate math. And unfortunately, that's a missing variable that's key. The variable missing is the time. How long did it take him to do it? But if you really think about it, that may not even matter because no one's driving straight through. And every time you stop, it affects your average speed unless you subtract that from the time. You subtract your pit stop. So I doubt he did that. He may have, but I couldn't find any publications where it talked about the average speed. So if you could find out how long it took him to travel, I think it was LA, like downtown, somewhere in LA to New York, 3,711 miles, let me know, because I am kind of interested in that, because 93.158 miles per gallon, you had to have been crawling. But he's called a hypermiler, which it's a skill set in getting the most out of your vehicle, because that Prius averages somewhere around 57 or 58 miles per gallon anyway, but he pretty much damn near doubled that. So pretty interesting. Actually, it's not that interesting. For over a decade, 4Wheel Online has been bringing the best truck accessories and truck parts to enhance the appearance and performance of all trucks and SUVs. They are dedicated to providing an extensive range of upgrades that will match any maker model on the road. The truck products cover everything to give your truck a custom look and added functionality. Need a wheel and tire package? Head over and use the configuration tool. They carry all the major brands of wheels and tires, so go get outfitted today. Visit them online at 4Wheel Online. I want to welcome Chase Heath, fellow NSX owner. One of the first people I met when I moved to Arizona. He's in town for Ravi Tourmalin's Southwest Speed Festival that we talked about last weekend. So I invited him to come over. We've been talking about getting you on the pod. And I think originally you weren't even really, you didn't really consume podcasts or anything. That's why I'd asked you, just so you kind of understood that my podcast is a lot of bullshit and nothing serious. Because I don't know dick about cars. But, welcome.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about why you're here? Well, we had this conversation earlier. I go, what exactly is it that you do for work? So spend a couple minutes telling us and validating that you're a smart, you're a smart enough person to be sitting here.
That I'm qualified to actually sit in front of this and talk about it. So I've been in the technology field world, etc., since 1984. When I was, however old I was in 1984, and we're not going to talk about that. But so professionally since 94. Okay. So there's a 10-year period of growing up and doing military, because I was in the Air Force, did my stint. And then when I got out...
Wait, how old are you?
Me? Right now? 54.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So I'm not that old.
Right.
I'm a card-carrying member of that community yet. Right.
Do you have a Diners Club credit card? No. That's still a thing.
I don't go to dinner at 3 p.m.
Okay. All right.
But so, yeah, I've been in the tech biz for 30 years as of this year. And I knew when I got out of the Air Force, I know I wanted to do tech because I was genuinely interested in it. It would seem like a field that would be not only a good career, but I was interested in it. Mm-hmm. And because you're always learning and you're always a student. Anybody that gets in that field that doesn't plan on studying doesn't last long. Or they get into one skill and they stay in that skill and they don't grow much. and they just try and walk on water and their one little thing, whatever that one thing is. And that's cool, right? There's guys that only write Java. That's all they do is write Java. And then outside of Java, they just don't know what the hell's going on, right? And then there's other people that, and all the hundreds of disciplines that exist in the technology career, I guess, or careers, because it is a massive landscape.
I'm raising my hand.
Yeah, well, he's raising his hand. So why are you raising your hand there, bud?
This is going to sound silly, and maybe it does, and now it's just nested in all the updates, but is Java itself still a thing? Because remember, you're on the computer and you always get those little pop-ups that Java needs to update, and I don't think I've seen that in years now.
So some people block JavaScript in their browser. Some websites stopped using Java, but I know that there's plenty of applications that are java.exe on servers all over the world. It's kind of pervasive, and it was very, very popular for a very long time.
Yeah.
More so than, say, things like Flash or some of the other crap.
I was just thinking of Macromedia Flash.
Yeah. And so, but Java and JavaScript and all of the other code bases that live in that general space, some of that stuff has transitioned into more modern code or different types of code to where they're using different frameworks. So Java has its own framework, and Node.js and all the other frameworks that exist out there. In code land, right? Code space, if you will. I'm not a coder by trade. I can read it, and then I can use cool little tools to help analyze it if I need to. So I'm geek enough to kind of dig in and go, yeah, I kind of think I see it doing this, and I think this is where they're calling that thing over there, and this is where it turns the light on and makes it blink.
Like in Word Plus.
Blinking lights and stuff.
Yeah.
Because in IT, at the end of the day, we're just trying to make a light blink green.
Right.
Pretty much. Or spit a report out of a printer that's out of ink or whatever because nobody changed the cartridge or the toner. PC load letter reference there. But...
So I interrupted you right on the Java.
Yeah. So anyways, 30 years ago, I picked up Network Magazine in a yellow highlighter from like a bookstore. And I just went through it and I said, well, every career field has its jargon, has its language. And I've always been a student of language and dictionaries of all types. I don't know why. I'm just kind of interested in language. And so I highlighted all the words I didn't understand and then went and learned them. And that's how I taught myself to be an IT guy early on. And that's never really changed. There's a million acronyms that they use for anything out there. But the first and foremost acronym that all IT people must learn is RTFM, which is Read, Define, Manual.
Okay.
Right? Or RFM. And then there's all the normal jokes that go with all the acronyms that are out there, but it is a language just like any other field. If you're a surgeon, there's acronyms you use. If you're an anesthesiologist, like my friend in Chicago, he uses his own acronyms, and literally he has acronyms after his name. I have no idea what they mean. All I know is that he can put people to sleep and keep them alive during really crazy events in their existence, right? And he deals with all levels of trauma and stuff like that, and he's worked in ERs. So a very interesting guy. And we were talking in this chat over at my buddy's lake house earlier in Michigan, actually. And where we're both from originally. So both Jay and I are from Michigan originally. And we were originally introduced by Justin back in the day.
Justin.
Mr. Justin James.
Oh, Justin. Okay.
Yeah. So we were originally introduced by Justin. He's like, I know a guy in Grand Rapids that you would get along with, and his name is Jay. I was like, all right, that's cool.
Sorry, Justin, if you listen to this, I blanked. Don't be mad at me.
Yeah. So Justin's awesome guy. Last I knew, I think he's back that way.
Yeah. He's back in Michigan.
And he's cooking up some awesome barbecue. So
Big hot barbecue.
Go buy his barbecue. He's got good meat, apparently.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. I think it's big hot meat barbecue or something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Hey, if it fits, it ships, right?
If it fits, it ships.
So, so the background is the guy that's 30 years through an IT career and progressively studied all the way up to the level I'm at now that I don't even ever talk about because it's just my job. It's what I do for a living, and it's not who I am. It's just what I do. Who I am is just I'm a car guy. I love a lot of other hobbies. I love spending time with my dogs more than anything. There's the balance in life, I think. There's that yin and yang in life. I knew that there was times in my IT career where that was all I did.
Right.
And I was way deep inside of the digital world, probably too deep at certain times where I was like learning or I was just enjoying certain areas of it, exploring. But you can go down the rabbit hole deep.
Sure.
Really deep. And so there's all kinds of rabbit holes. It could be like engineered rabbit holes like World of Warcraft or League of Legends or any of those kinds of designed to be played forever kind of games that never end. And to them, it just ends up being kind of a social experiment of sorts that generates money and micropayments or whatever for the gaming companies. So fun fact, I did a project for a major gaming company out of Santa Monica. And I got to see inside of a gaming company and watch people that were literally generations before me work. And they are so different.
So how so? Like, what was that like? Because when I think about that, I think of, I don't know if you're a movie buff or not.
Yeah.
Have you seen Free Guy?
Yeah.
The Ryan Reynolds one?
Yeah.
So I picture walking in and there's obviously this giant server room, but then you just have all these little pods of people working on different parts of the software, almost similar to, I guess, our world in regular IT. But what's that like? And when was this?
So this was probably about 6 years ago.
Oh, so recent.
Yeah, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was about a year that I was going out there, which is its own story in and of itself, that it's 74 miles from my house, but
everything is 74 miles from your house.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily, but pretty much everything is. But to my house is Santa Monica, 74 miles, but it's Southern California drive time. So the mileage is relevant. It's literally the other human beings that are there.
Right.
And I've always said back during COVID, it was the best time in Los Angeles, Southern California.
No traffic.
You could actually drive places.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could drive there, and it's a reasonable drive to get to from here to there. And it would be great if Thanos snapped his fingers and half the people there just kind of,
So was Thanos right?
Kind of. At least from a Southern California traffic perspective. Yeah. I mean, because I love people. People are great. It's all good. It's all good in the hood. That's great. But there's just too many of them.
Yeah.
It just is too many people in one spot. Everybody's trying to get wherever they're getting. But the weirdest thing, though, when I did that project, they had a corporate apartment in downtown LA.
Right.
Not Santa Monica for some crazy reason, but downtown LA. So there's a stretch of highway about 14 miles long, 15 miles long that goes from Santa Monica to downtown LA. Well, it wouldn't move. It would go a couple feet and then it'd stop, a couple feet and then it'd stop. And you're listening to whatever is on the radio. And I'm watching people blaze up on the highway for their 15-mile commute that's going to take an hour. I'm like, these people can't even wait till they get home to just blaze up on the highway. Smoke some weed or whatever on their commute home. I'm like, that must be the most LA thing I've ever seen, is you're sitting in traffic and you're not going anywhere fast. They're just like, well, there's nothing better to do, so they just smoke a bowl.
That's funny because...
or a joint or whatever.
Yeah, when you think about it, when you get high, time slows down. So you're already staring at a 45-minute drive as it is. That's got to feel like it took them a day and a half to get home.
I'm thinking, right?
Yeah, that's bizarre. So the studio, I guess sidetracked, right? You sidetracked.
Yeah.
Is it what you would have imagined, or was it nothing like you would imagine? Maybe there's a sign on the wall, and that's the only way you knew you were in a gaming studio.
Oh, no, you really knew. Sorry, I'll back to your question.
So was it like Mother's Boy or Grandma's Boy then? Or because that's the only other movie I've seen where there's been games.
So I'll say this, it didn't look like any movie set I'd ever seen, right? Rather than the movies. Gaming companies are essentially art firms that have an engine.
Yeah.
And that engine shows you frames. 30 frames per second is NTSC video, right? Standard television video. Or 24 frames per second if you're watching film. If you're watching YouTube, it's just about the same. And you can actually press the 2X button on YouTube and watch stuff super fast. So imagine that back in the day, the Walt Disney cartoonists, when they're making their earlier cartoon movies that we grew up on, right? And a lot of people that were the earlier cartoons, they literally would draw frame by frame. So these guys are using technology applications to draw the character and then walk that character through a sequence of planned events or scenes, if you will. If it's a karate guy and he's throwing a right punch, they have to 3D model that 3D punch, just like you're playing Mortal Kombat back in the day, right? Or the death, whatever that thing is in Mortal Kombat, or the flying kick, or the Hadouken guy, right?
But did they take? So 6 years ago,
inside. Let me finish before you get there. Inside, when you walk in, there's a 12-foot tall array of characters just as if you were at a theme park. Literally,
Sure.
the lobby is a lady at a desk with a iPad that you can sign into because it's a tech company. You can't just do paper and pencil. You have to touch an iPad screen. And there's a nice lady at the desk where, going to help give you information about where you're going or whatever. And it's got kind of a bamboo walls and kind of a chill, zen-ish kind of vibe around the building. There's different zones in the building for sure. But in the actual main lobby, I'm not going to say who the company is. But
is there some sort of a client agreement or some sort of an NDA or something?
I just don't need to say the name of it. But
okay.
It's just atypical gaming. It's a typical, not atypical, but it would be, I would imagine, because I've seen a couple of other gaming companies that are pretty similar.
Okay.
You walk in and then the main character from whatever their big games are, main characters from their big title that's out there in the world and it's making billions of dollars a year for them. And it's just basically a bunch of cartoons with a bunch of code that allow the cartoons to interact with each other with cool whiz-bang crap, right? And you're doing it as a team model, or you're doing a team player versus player, or you're doing a player versus many, or just it's a big death match, or whatever that model is that they're doing. It's essentially, you have an avatar, it's a cartoon, pretty much. Even if it's Call of Duty, it's still a cartoon.
Right.
Right? But it's a really complex one in this huge environment. And as the technology in the game space, meaning imagine the 3D world space that is a game. It's this weird, and you've seen it represented in various movies as even as far back as Tron, where it was this hex pattern on a wall, right? And then they actually lay something on that pattern to give it a texture, right? So it actually looks like a wallpaper, or it looks like a painted wall, or a semi-gloss wall, or this wall right here that's got sound stuff on it. So those are all textures in gaming manufacture, basically. They manufacture this within a certain size space. When you look at the world games, those are supposed to feel as if it's an unlimited globe, right? They put you on a planet and you drop in via whatever, and ta-da, now you're in this immersive planet environment. You get to go explore it. Well, what that really is it's a bunch of these worlds that are linked together, right? So it's a bunch of 3D spaces that are just like A, B, C, D, whatever. And they're just linked together, and you can walk between one and the other and just load to the next world as you get closer to it, so it seems seamless to you. That's really what they're doing. And the way that they take your input, be it a command from your little controller here, like a PlayStation controller, or keyboard and mouse, or something else like the 3D glasses deals, goggles.
Yeah.
What the hell are they
called?
Those
Oculus.
Yeah, Oculus. Yeah. Or it's one of those little handle thingies, which they had a actual 3D room with the Oculus and the things, and you could play 3D games in this room, and it had all the sensors all over the wall. And I would spend half an hour in there before my brain would just go, okay, I can't do it anymore.
Right.
Because you can only do so much of that at a time.
You have to be used to it. You have to be conditioned to it.
I would think so.
And it's hard. Yeah.
And because it was fun, but it's actually, you're doing a full-on workout in a room, and because it's a space that you're actually able to physically move around this physical space with a virtual thing attached to it. And some people's brains just don't do it really well, right? It's hard to kind of deal with it. But at the end of it, it's an art space. Mm-hmm. So gaming companies are effectively art departments with technology people that write the code that runs the game and runs the engine. So the Unreal Engine and Quake Engine and any of the other engines that exist out there. The Unreal's super popular. And then whatever proprietary engine they might have to do certain things. And depends too on the type of game, right? So if you're playing Pokemon Go, that's a totally different kind of engine versus Call of Duty player versus player, shoot 'em up stuff. Or like Counter-Strike, where it's just, 5 guys here, 5 guys there, and you're just trying to achieve whatever your objective is. And that's very, very real time and extremely sensitive to latency and all the network side part of it. So you have all the engineers that provide a platform that the cartoonists effectively load their stuff on top of and show you, the user, effectively an interactive cartoon that involves goals and tools and currency and economy, right? So when people talk about the economy of game spaces, I find that very interesting because you just go, okay, so somehow this magic doohickey that dropped, or this loot that dropped because you killed the dragon or the big bad guy at the end of the game or whatever, is now worth something in game value. But to other people in the real world, they literally don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
So only in the context of the player space does that actual doohickey, which is really just a cartoon, or I guess you would kind of equate it to what was the goofy thing that came out during COVID with the non-fungible tokens, NFTs.
Oh, NFTs,
what was it, the monkeys or whatever it was?
Yeah, the something. Oh, I have one of those too. Yacht Club or something. Yeah.
But it's like a goofy looking monkey.
Yeah,
pretty much, right? It's the same kind of vibe where you're like, okay, it's a virtual thing, and supposedly in the game space that somehow has currency. So if you look at the folks that make this game, sometimes they don't even know that they're actually building a thing that's going to be valuable in the game until their art director or the game director says, well, we need some fancy objects, but they're going to be rare.
Bored Ape, by the way.
I'm sorry?
Bored Ape.
Oh, Bored Ape. Yeah, there it is.
Bored Ape Yacht Club.
I knew it had something to do with a monkey.
Yep.
But so when you think about it, you have this construct of a game that somebody's imagining. They're telling a story sometimes. Sometimes it's just you're there and you're just, like Minecraft, right? They're just building blocks and people go build their own little place and they're like, hey, come play in my place or whatever.
Which weirdly is still a thing.
I guess.
Because when I was going to college, 2008, 2012, Minecraft was there. And I go, what a simple thing. What a fad. And it's still a thing.
Yeah. And so having made game maps a very long time ago when it was hard in the early days, right? When you had to use, sweat and whatever to really put it together and duct tape and whatever, just go, oh yeah, it kind of works. Versus now you literally can go, I would like it this big and I'd like this and that. By the way, throw these things on there and put this color on it. And by the way, I'd like an archway over here and a doorway over there and put a little trapdoor on the floor and this kind of thing. And by the way, light it this way with these 14 different light sources. And now we have ray tracing and your badass video card is going to do all the ray tracing because they're able to push the processing of that down to the users instead of trying to do it themselves. They say, this is the scene, go build the scene in your video card and show it to the user, right? Because it is a scene, but it's a series of scenes that are essentially done to show you almost like you're making an old cartoon. So that, to me, that's the heart of a video game. And I know I went a weird direction there, but in the actual shop itself. So here's the fun thing.
We haven't got past the bamboo walls and the statues and the chick that checks you in.
It's a series of open bay offices.
Okay.
That are this weird blend of laughter, cacophony, people playing Nerf wars on occasion, and people being very serious and doing their jobs. And then they have breakout rooms where you can just go chill. They have little kitchens where you can go get your kitchen on, whatever's in the kitchen. They have treats that you can't find outside of that facility because they're like uniquely made for that company, I guess. And they're all like, gluten-free and vegan, this and that, and blah, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, dude, I'd like some Cheetos. Nope, ain't no Cheetos at this gaming company, dude. And you go in the lunchroom and it's mostly salad.
Yeah. And
quinoa crap. And, and you can go get a chia thing for breakfast or whatever. The chia, is it called chia or something? Acai?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's chia seeds.
Yeah, there's that too. Yeah. But they literally at the breakfast
bowls or whatever
had acai bowls.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I don't even know what that is, dude. Do you have like eggs?
Right.
And toast?
Right.
Can I get some toast? He's like, yeah, it's right over there. Go make your own. I'm like, thanks. So
it's at the Whole Foods.
It was
across
interesting,
the street.
but that particular facility that they occupied used to actually be a studio space for TV shows.
Mm.
So it was actually very high ceilings. It wasn't like the huge studios at Warner Brothers backlot. Those are huge, but a actual place where they shot TV shows. And there's a TV show there that called 24. So actually, one of the offices where I used to have meetings was Jack's office on the TV show.
The Kiefer Sutherland show.
Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah.
Yeah. So literally, they converted his old office on the TV show into a conference room.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was kind of neat. And there's couches. There's couches all over, so you can go have your cell phone conversation over there. And then they'd have like glassed off offices where you could actually have a meeting. And all of those had screens, cameras, the whole like video conferencing. But they were literally, you could have a video conference with anybody, anywhere. Their level of technology adoption was beyond other companies. Their budget for technology adoption Completely different business model than other companies. They spent whatever they needed to spend with very little.
So it sounds like a pretty prominent place.
Oh, it was, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Very. But I mean, literally, there was a guy that sat 3 desks from me, and the entire time I was there.
Was it Epic Games?
No. Was
it Bethesda?
No.
Was it the people make Call of Duty?
No.
Okay.
So you keep asking, it's funny. But they had this guy that worked 3 desks for me was kind of the genius maker guy. When you say maker, so there's a whole community of people that are makers and they just make stuff because they're good at it.
He's the guy from Grandma's Boy.
I don't know what that is. I'm sorry, I never saw it.
You had to. Okay, so you have to. Well, that's your homework assignment.
Okay.
Grandma's Boy.
Okay, I've never seen it. So.
And you're gonna laugh your ass off.
I will.
It's stupid.
I will absolutely.
It's from Happy Madison Productions.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I never saw it.
Yeah.
But I've seen almost everything that he's made. I would know it if I saw it. Somehow I missed it, which is bizarre actually, because I like watching film and movies and stuff. There's film and movies; they're different, right? So
I agree.
But this guy that sat 3 desks from me had some chips that were very specialized on his, I guess, stack of junk on his desk, and I knew what they were worth. They were worth about $20,000 a piece, and he had 6 of them. And they sat there on top of his desk the entire time I worked
poker
there.
Chips.
These are computer specialized, very, very specialized computer chips that at the time were extremely expensive. And he had a bunch of them
processors
for a thing he was going to build that was his side project. But it was literally the value of like a really nice truck.
Sure.
But it just sat on his desk. And I would regularly have lunch with the guy that would run security for parts of their environment. And the most important...
Is it an NVIDIA?
No.
Okay.
No, I love that you're asking me. It's hilarious. But very intriguing to see people that are IT folks working without a budget, meaning working without the constraints on their budget, people that actually got what they needed, whatever it was they needed, to do their jobs and to run the environment really, really well. And compare that and contrast that with your average insurance company.
Sure.
Or IT shop versus a financial investing shop, which is a very different, type of shop, but they actually do invest a fair amount in their technology because they use it all the time and they need really fast stuff to be able to do what they do. They got to have 6 screens in front of every trader and all that stuff because they're incredibly information intensive versus places that don't invest in their tech and they will literally ride their tech into the dirt. They're that guy driving down the highway in the 55-year-old truck. Yep, still running. Don't need a new one. Does everything it needs me to do. I can put the same stuff in the back of this truck as I can put in a new truck. So they never buy a new one. He's like, well, once in a while I got to put new tires on it. And my mechanic retired, but I'm just going to get another mechanic. No problem. And so it's interesting when you compare having worked in my field for 30 years to kind of draw it to the 30-year thing. Which, by the way, isn't gaming. He's not a gamer. No. Yeah, I don't actually work in the gaming discipline. I have gamed throughout my life. I've worked at a gaming company, which was a cool experience to have. It was just like a 1-year stint that I did a project for them. But it's very intriguing.
Is it Ubisoft?
Sorry?
Ubisoft?
No, it's not Ubisoft.
Okay.
But we have a fellow owner who works at a gaming company who's part of the NSX owner community.
Oh, cool.
He's a very prominent owner. He's a very nice guy. He actually owns the same model and year as I have. Same color and everything. We're literally cousin cars.
We should talk about that soon.
Yeah, there's only like 44
I have a question for you
actually.
About those.
So to wrap up that part of the gaming conversation, it's very, very, very cool environment to work in. A lot of very fun people, very artistic people.
Right.
You could literally typecast a gaming company and go walk around there for a day and go, okay, we need one of those characters, one of these characters, one of these characters. If you're a casting director, to say we're going to shoot a show about people that make video games. And make that kind of, a series or whatever with a backdrop of comedy or whatever the hell it is. Literally just go in there, pick out the different people from the room and go, that's going to be a great cast. It's going to present really well because there's some quirky ass people that work in it because they're artists. And they're Southern California artists that live around Santa Monica, that live around Venice, that live around other areas. And it's very intriguing because there's different attitudes about a gaming company in the Bay Area versus a gaming company in Santa Monica or Venice, or which they're actually calling Silicon Beach, by the way. That whole area.
Silicon Beach.
Yes. And they've called it that for quite a while because that's kind of, for some reason, where they decided, and I think a lot of it has to do with media, proximity to the other studios that are out there, the talent base, the creative people, the fact that these people think differently because they live in a place where there's a bit of a reality distortion field. We don't really have seasons too much if you live in right there. It's just beach. And you get, clouds in June. Okay. So you get the June gloom, right? Until 3 in the afternoon or 2 in the afternoon when it burns off because of the heat. But that's the local climate there. And so it actually affects people's attitudes. So some of the beach people that you might see stereotyped in movies or whatever, like Dave Brow, right on, bro.
Right.
That stuff, that's real.
Yeah.
Those are real people, and there's real attitudes like that. And by the way, I just want to wrap that up by saying you can have a car show in Compton. You can.
You can have a car show in Compton. So switching from gaming to NSXs, tell us about your NSX a little bit, and then I have a follow-up question for you, and it just remind me talking about the cars.
Before I got mine 100 for 8 years for it, I knew exactly what I wanted. It was always going to be a 2000 or 2001 red and tan. That was my target. That means that I had 44 cars to pick from that came to the United States and landed here at some point. I really wanted just those years because they were the sweet spot for me.
Why?
The 2000 has perforated seats and has a lot of upgrades, the upgraded ABS and all the other upgrades that came in that. 02 and 05, the facelift had the bubble of the fixed lights. They still have upgrades too, but I think the important upgrades happened right about 2000. To me, that was the sweet spot for the NA2, which is the 97 to 2001s. I did have an opportunity to buy. And
he's talking fixed light NA2.
Yeah, the fixed light NA2 is the 2000 to 2005. The pop-ups are 97 to 2001.
I don't know why I said it backwards.
Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah. I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
There's 4 types of NSXs.
Yeah. I'm the president. Of course I know. I'm the president of the club. Not only my client.
So part of getting an NSX, and I think this is kind of where I'm going with it, is the part of getting an NSX, and the people that are listening to this that don't have an NSX have to understand, even back when it was easier to find them, it was still a pain in the ass to find somebody that would sell one. And these days, sure, there's people that will sell them.
Everything has a price.
But everything has a price, right? If you walked up to me with a big bag of money that had enough money in it, enough packets of $10,000, how many
miles are on yours now?
Now, here's the fun part. Let me get to that in just a second.
Because I thought it was pretty scarce for a while.
It was pretty scarce.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm going to hit a milestone on this trip, actually. Yes. Okay. So I bought my car. I searched for it for 8 years, and it was a hunt. It was a daily hunt. It was an obsession. It became very, very obsessive to go. And my wife, to the point where my wife was like, I'm tired of you looking for a car. Have you found one yet? I flew all over the country looking at those red and tan NSXs that were 2000, 2001. I found other ones that I thought might be a nice alternative. There's a really remarkable one I found in Miami that had 2,797 miles on it.
Wow.
And it was a 91, and it was a barn find. It literally sat in a shop in Miami, at the back of a shop in Miami for 18 years. I actually passed on it. It's sick, the deal I would have got on it, because Don was going to sell it to me for $30,000. I ended up telling the guy in North Carolina about it. I actually put it on Prime. And the guy in North Carolina, Gas Motors, bought it, rehabbed it, and sold it to a guy in Switzerland. It went to Switzerland with less than 3,000 miles on it.
When did you get yours?
I bought mine March of 2011. So I hunted from 03 to 2011 for my car, and very seriously for 8 years. And very, very seriously for the 4 years prior to actually getting it. There was a guy in Tennessee that was going to sell me his 01. It was at 24,000 miles on it for I don't remember the price, but I said, yeah, I'll buy it. And I literally went there, flew there. My uncle lived like 2 hours from there in Knoxville. I drove down to where this dude lives, which isn't that far actually from Barney, or Barnman. He's more Memphis, I think, or Nashville.
I think so.
Yeah, somewhere over there. And Anyways, I ended up hunting all over the country for it. And I'm driving to the store one day in my local neighborhood here in Phoenix.
That's funny.
And I go past a local park where there's a car show happening that I've never heard of. And I just happened to glance over and see a glint of red. And I went, oh, hold on a second. That's an NSX. Let me pull over and see what's up there. I walk over. There's nobody by the car, but there is a guy in a Camaro next to it, kind of an older Camaro. Nice guy. And I was like, hey, who owns this car? And he's like, oh, he's the guy that's reffing a baseball game over here at the local baseball field. So I was like, all right, you got a spare chair? So I sat in this guy's extra chair, talked cars with him for like an hour and a half, 2 hours for this guy to get back from reffing a baseball game. He walks up. I was like, you own this car? He's like, yeah. And I said, let me tell you about your car. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I've been hunting for one of these, like this exact car, because there's only so many just like it. And I proceeded to tell him everything about his car that he didn't know. And I said, da-da-da-da, when he's selling it to me. Because he was the president of my HOA and lived literally 7 minutes from my house.
That's wild.
I'd driven all over the country trying to find these damn things.
Yeah,
so anyways,
that's wild.
he ends up calling me, because I kind of kept pretty close to him because I knew I wanted his car because it was perfect. It only had 16,500 miles on it. And this is March of 10. This is like November of 10. So between November and March, I was basically like, hey, dude, so when are you going to get that other car and sell me yours, right? Because he wanted to get an 05. He ends up buying Yolinda and Jack's 2005.
Okay.
And you know who they are. And so he bought their 05. And he calls me one evening, like 6 in the afternoon. Hey, man, come and get it. I went, I ain't even going to ask twice. I'm like, you home? He's like, yeah, come get it. I was like, okay. Ain't got to ask me twice. At each point, I hung up the phone, looked at my wife, with a big old grin on my face. I went, he's going to sell it to me. So I just walked over, or not walked. She drove me over, and I didn't even ask him if he had second thoughts about it. I'm like, here's your check.
The days before Uber. I'm assuming you got it for a decent price?
Yeah, I did.
Because that was back when they were still attainable.
It was the right time to buy.
Yeah.
For sure. You know, even then, it wasn't cheap. But in today's money, it's, it would be considered cheap. But I got a good price on it for sure. But I've used the car, and as I left, I just put 360 miles on it
driving here
from where I live. And I know when I go to the show we're going to tomorrow for Ravi's show, the speed thing.
Yep.
The festival O Speed or Do Speed or whatever.
Yeah. Southwest Speed Fest.
I know I'm going to cross 50,000 miles on my way home. And I'm looking forward to take the picture. So that's actually a very significant thing for an owner, because once you cross 50, there's an actual valuation line that you're crossing. And I'm going to cross that on my way home.
What wheels do you have on the car?
So it came with HRE 540R polished, 1718 staggered. So it came with those. Originally, it had the Blade Silver 7 spokes. 1617 that were the OEMs. Mm-hmm. It actually didn't come.
Those are my favorite, by the way.
It actually didn't come with them. So I actually sourced a set from Wade.
Wade here?
Down the street.
Yeah, Science of Speed.
Yeah, Science of Speed. I think he was selling a set for somebody or whatever, but they need to be reconditioned. So I took them to the guys in Tempe, wheel specialists, and said, send these out and have them lathe. No, actually, I didn't take it to them. I took it to a guy near there. It wasn't them guys. It was a different guy right in Tempe. And he laid them perfectly. Got them clear coated. My buddy that worked at Wheel Specialist facilitated that. That's right. And that was actually the guy who takes photos. The really, really awesome guy. I can't remember his name.
Was it John?
Yeah, it was John.
Yeah,
it was John. John Bazet.
Yep.
Yeah, John was working at Wheel Specialist for a minute, and he actually facilitated that with the guy to go get the wheels redone, whatever. So I have an OEM pristine set of Blade Silvers for my car that are year correct, because they actually came off of 2000.
I forgot that Bazet worked there.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, man. That's when he had the ZDX.
So what?
I think.
He still has one. He has a ZDX.
Was it a ZDX?
That's that weird kind of crossover Acura. He still has, either he had it and got rid of it, but he has one now.
Okay.
And it's definitely interesting. So how much would you sell your car for?
Right now?
No, yeah.
I know what because I occasionly...
And then it's not for sale.
No, it's not for sale. Even though it's for sale.
Yeah.
Because I do that for fun.
Yeah.
And I have every 4 or 5 years, I'll put an ad up and say, just like Tabasco, and I really do it because on NSXPrime.com, Tabasco used to post his car for $60,000, which back then was like, okay, you're not trying to sell it.
Right.
You just told your wife you're trying to sell it, So you put the ad up and you put this exorbitant price on it, which these days we wouldn't really consider exorbitant. Or
No.
not, but did I say exorbitant?
Yeah, we know what you meant. Yeah.
So back in the day, Tabasco used to post up his car, whoever he is, I don't even know who the guy is, but he used to post it up for a certain amount of money that was always over market by like 25 grand or whatever. So I post mine, most recently I posted mine up for 150,000. Just because I was like, well, if you're going to hand me a bag of 150,000, you can have it. Right? Because I'll just go do what? I'll go buy an Ariel Atom. Why not? Because it's the closest thing to a go-kart that my car is. It's the next thing closest to a go-kart, but it's still street legal. And you can hype them up and do some crazy shit with them. And you can track the crap out of it if you feel like it.
Oh, yeah.
And as long as you just put certain gear on it, you got to add the fire extinguisher, I think. And you can add the computer and all that stuff. But I'm like, because I really thought about it. Because it really is a question that I think NSX owners need to think about. What is the other car? A lot of us have tried other cars, and some guys have gone away and come back and tried 4 other platforms that they tried, the P car, the F car, the whatever, M cars, and so on and so forth. And then some of them find their way back, and some of them have never sold their NSX, and they just go drive other cars when they want to. Some of us don't have the luxury, so you have to have 1 or 2, right? But we all know NSX guys that have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stashed away in their garage somewhere. Like I know of a very pristine MCV that's sitting on a lift, and it hasn't left that lift in years. And it's pristine.
That's crazy.
It's amazing. It's beautiful. I mean, that's Monte Carlo Blue. I think it was in 97. But it's knowing that stuff's out there and knowing that there's a lot of passionate owners out there. But at some point, the platform's going to age to the point where maybe you don't drive it the way that you would have normally driven it. Maybe I'm not going to take it on that mountain run. Maybe I'm not actually on the track this weekend at Robbie's event because I can't replace it.
Right.
I'd go back through the hunt, and now my hunt is a lot more expensive, right, to try and replace it, versus go getting a $20,000 Miata and beating the crap out of it, right? And having just about the same experience.
Speaking of track runs, I always describe you like, hey, you want to get Chase involved? I go, yeah, but the guy's crazy and he's out of his mind because you're the guy who wants to hit the canyons at like 130% harder than people do. Because remember 5 or 6 years ago, you had the idea, and I think maybe you were planning with Justin before we moved, but remember the 1,000-mile thing?
Yes.
1,000 miles in like 2 days or something?
It was actually, it wasn't 2 days. It was roughly 5.
But it was like from Phoenix to Vegas was one of your routes.
Yes.
I go, I can drive straight and get there in 5 hours. But it was a super aggressive route. But that's how I always describe you. Is like, if you want someone to plan a cruise, a crazy cruise, talk to Chase.
I think
because we did one here.
Yes.
And you left way after us. Remember that? One of the old supercar cruises.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I didn't. I'll never forget about that. Because we got down to...
I woke up late.
What was it? Is it the Verde exit or whatever?
Yeah.
To kind of go by Strawberry, exit. Right?
Yeah.
Camp Verde. And you left 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes after everybody else. And you caught us by the time we were at that gas station, right off the exit.
Uh-huh.
This is what we're dealing with here, guys. And he doesn't have a turbo NSX.
No.
He just has an NA2 NSX and a lead foot. And then you flew past us.
Yeah, I might have done that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So where does that come from? I think it's designing the car, driving the car as designed, but not 9 of 10, not 10 of 10. There's a time and a place for everything. The track is where you actually start steering with your right foot. That's where you learn to steer with your right foot. You're actually kicking the back of the car out. You're pre-sliding the curve, and you're exiting the curve full on. And there's racers that'll show you that. And our dear friend showed me how to do that.
Cause.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and he showed me how to do that with my car, and I never knew my car could do that, and it blew my effing mind. I mean, absolutely blew my mind. I was on cloud 9 the rest of that day because he had showed me how really the true limit of my car. And I never knew that Honda did that with my car.
Yeah.
I didn't know my car could do that. And I only have a KWV3 suspension set up, my HREs, and that's about it, really. I have an exhaust. Big deal. I've not tuned anything else on the car. It just is what it is. But I always make sure my tires are good and make sure I have good pressure and yada, yada, yada. I'm a good owner that way. And really awesome brake pads and awesome brake fluid that's fresh. Don't track with old fluid.
Right.
You'll kill yourself. We've lost people in the car community because they did what? They went out with old fluid, old tires, old stuff. The shit that matters. Can you stop the car?
Right.
that kind of matters. If you're gonna boil your brake fluid and smoke your brakes, that's usually bad when you're on a track going 130 miles an hour. So canyon drives and stuff, that really comes from just wanting to use the car the way it was designed. A long time ago here in the Valley, the guy, the Lamborghini repair guy up by the airport in Scottsdale, I can't remember his name, Brian or Ryan, something like that. He would put on supercar runs. And they got to the point where they were actually too off the hook and he stopped doing them.
Yep.
I was actually there and saw and witnessed the actual event. And I won't talk about it openly here on this, but I witnessed the event that forced him to cease him forever. He's like, I'm never doing this again because of what you guys did out there. And I actually witnessed that firsthand in front of me, about maybe 2,000 feet in front of me. And it was just bad decision making. So whenever you have a driver's meeting, you talk about going out and doing canyon runs or doing a drive or even just a street thing, is just make good decisions, right? If you're making good decisions, you're doing things in a place where it makes sense to do them. You shouldn't go blasting through your neighborhood at 60 miles an hour.
Correct.
Because there's children, there's dogs, cats.
You never know what's going to pop out.
Yeah, there's people. You're in the middle of the desert, and the only thing out there is you and, I don't know, maybe a coyote, maybe a tarantula, right? That's a different environment. That's a different space. You're running 89 up to Payson. There's only a couple things you got to be worried about there. Usually he sits on top of the bridge, and he's got little lights on top of his car. If you run up the hill,
and a radio.
If you run up the hill over to Congress, and you run up Yarnell Hill, you already know who that is. That's the old guy that sits out there. And then if you go out to the corner to run up Salt River Canyon, there's the old guy that sits out there, right? And they all work for the same organization, DPS.
Yep.
So that's a local Arizona thing. But when you go out and you drive, say, in California, we had talked about this a little bit earlier, the contrast between Arizona car culture and the scene of driving, not just the car scene itself, but the driving scene. There's a racing scene
Let's
here.
talk about that a little bit.
There's a bit of a racing scene out there. There's a bit of a car scene out there. There's a bit of a driving scene. Is very, very compartmentalized. Like here, there's tribes and there's people that are just those guys and there's these guys and those guys,
right.
Whatever. The same holds true out there. The same holds true in many other car communities. But when it's in the driving community out there, which is not just like planned drives, where it's like us and our friends, we're going for a drive together and we're charging everybody $300 for no reason. I don't understand that. I just kind of don't. But it's the driving people that are kind of the same tribe that just like going and driving or riding their bikes or driving their cars. There's a lot of really good roads in the mountains of Southern California that are great for that. So any given Saturday when the weather's halfway decent and the road's pretty good, like after the rains and after the winter, people start talking about, when are we going to run Angeles Crest? When are we going to go run Tatunga? When are we going to run lower or bigger? When are we going to run the Snake, Mulholland? And there's some very, very popular drives out there. And they should be. It's canyon runs. They're a blast if you enjoy that kind of driving. But there's obviously time and a place for everything. People out there are famous on Mulholland for making a really, really bad left-hander, right? And there's been lots of videos of people wiping out and taking out themselves and flipping their Mercedes over or whatever. Last one I saw, I think it was a Beamer. And the cops try and patrol that particular area because they're just tired of getting called out there where guys are flipping their cars over because they don't know how to drive or they've oversteered their turn and they don't know how to drive it correctly. So when I've hosted drives before out there and here, because I lived here before I moved there, here in Arizona, that is, and then moved out there to Southern California, the same kind of drives hold true. There's just more opportunities, I think, out there in that there's various places and various topology. There's an entire mountain called Palomar where you can go drive the mountain, and it is a full-on mountain. There's a mountain in San Gabriel Mountains, and that's Mount Baldy. They just had a huge fire up there. Another one, San Bernardino Mountains. That's the drive that goes up to Lake Arrowhead.
I think we did San Bernardino. Is that just outside of Palm Springs? So what is that one? Remember that cruise?
Yeah, the one outside of Palm Springs, that's the mountain right next to Palm Springs. That's the Palm de Pines that goes up to Idlewild. That goes up to Idlewild, which is the top of the mountain over kind of Palm Springs. That you can come out of the backside of Palm Springs and take this twisty road that goes up the mountain.
Yep, that's
and
it.
that goes up. They call that palm to pines. So you start with the palm trees, and then you end up with pine trees up at the very top where Idlewild is. And then from there, you can drop out to the south, or you can keep going over the mountain. You end up going back out to the 10, where Banning is, which is the north exit essentially from down the mountain. And that's a fun drive, but that is a full-on mountain drive, and you have to respect where you're at. The same as if you were to go drive Pikes Peak or someplace in Colorado where there's no guardrails, kids. If you come off the $1 Million Highway in Ouray, Colorado, you're toast.
Yeah, Pikes Peak. Have you driven on there?
No, I haven't.
So Pikes Peak
I've watched a lot of videos, though.
Yeah, so it's an active highway or road. You go all the way to the top, and there's a little restaurant up top or a gift shop. But they have, at all the checkpoints, they have a guy there with a hand temperature thingy, and he shoots your brakes, and if they're too hot, you have to pull over and wait for them to cool down before he lets you keep going, which basically means stop riding your brakes and you're driving too fast. So they have a very interesting way of regulating people coming down the mountain.
That's perfectly logical. One of the engine builders that does the Pikes Peak, a build for the Pikes Peak run, his number one problem was cooling the car down at altitude.
Yep.
So they had to design the car, and awesome car on the ground, like normal sea level, badass car. But you're trying to keep the thing cool when you're doing a race up a mountain that goes up to what, 14,000 feet or whatever?
14,200 feet or something. Yeah,
it's a way up there. But the cooling part of it, I think, was actually the surprising part of that story I read a couple of years back, probably 3 or 4 years ago. And that's a very intriguing part of motorsport and cars, and being a part of a car, being a car guy, is going, oh wow, I never really realized that downforce is either that important in certain disciplines. Other disciplines, they don't want it, right? Just drifting, right? Maybe they don't want downforce. Maybe they want certain kinds of downforce, not others. Versus, wow, it's surprising that Gordon's car can generate so much downforce because the aerodynamics that they decided to use without having the BAW, the big ass wing that's actuated and tip whatever that you might see hanging off the back of a McLaren or some other cars that are out there, or like a fancy Lamborghini or something. Mm-hmm. And you look at some of the designs and stuff and the different approaches that they take. It's intriguing, especially it's wintertime. There's nothing to do, or it's hot in the middle in Phoenix, and you don't really want to go anywhere unless it's the middle of the night because it's just too damn hot. And so that's actually, I think, one of the biggest contrasts is the weather. Simply between here and there, it's just the weather.
There's more driving days out there.
Yeah. More driving days. Obviously, the mountains, they do get snow. So it's this or that. It's either the heat or the cold, right?
Right.
But when it gets too cold and it's wintertime, that's cool. You can do a coastal drive. And that's kind of nice because people do go there on vacation because it is pretty. You can go do a quick drive up Malibu and have a pretty enjoyable day in the middle of winter. And if you want to run some of the little canyons right there, you totally can, because there's not really snow there except for maybe a day or two a year or something. It'd be pretty rare.
And you live closer to the crest, right? The Angel's Crest.
So actually, I like to put it this way because the coast is at an angle.
You were at San Bernardino?
I'm actually in Riverside.
That's right, Riverside.
Equidistant from downtown LA and San Diego. And if you literally draw a line between the two where they intersect XY coordinates.
Interesting. I thought you were more
where I live. I'm more inland. Yeah, I'm east, but it's inland.
Yeah.
So I'm literally actually right near a mutual friend who lives in Corona. So Corona is right next door to me. And so it's kind of interesting, the corridor of
Mexi?
Mexi, yeah. The corridor of the 15 that runs alongside the east side of what I call the Corona Mountains. There's probably a real name for them, but I call them the Corona Mountains. They probably have a sand something name or whatever. But the opposite side of those mountains is Orange County.
Yeah, okay.
Right? And Coto and all the fancy houses and Laguna and really expensive areas. Mm-hmm. And beautiful areas too, rightfully so. It's quite lovely. Really nice areas. And a great place to go, not in your exotic car. Because the police down there don't like exhausts that sound anything other than quiet.
It's a very California thing.
Yeah, a very localized thing.
Yeah.
To that area, that particular part of Orange County. You get basically Newport Beach and south until you get down to about Carlsbad. Until you get just south of Laguna. Once you're south of there, they leave you alone. But there's a certain section in there where they have some pretty well-moneyed people that have some pretty nice cars. And some of those cars happen to be pretty loud because they're modified Lambos and they're McLarens and all this other stuff, right? So you have the supercar crowd down in that particular area, and they patrol really heavily for those, to the point where they have road signs literally right as you enter one particular area that says loud exhaust will be ticketed. You expect to
that's
get
the
stopped.
city that has those. I don't know what they are, but they pick up sound and have to guess which one of those cars is the loud one, and they send you a ticket. Very controversial thing.
It's kind of uniquely local. I'll just leave it that way and just call it uniquely local.
Do you like being in California outside of the great roads?
It's a good question. Actually, I think the roads in Arizona are better. They're smoother.
I'm sorry, places to go with your car.
Right. So places to canyon drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some pretty epic drives there. I mean, literally, I can count 10 off the top of my head that I would actively go do without thinking hard. Some of them are short. Some of them are pretty close to me. There's one that actually is right by Lake Elsinore that goes over the mountain, what I call the Corona Mountain. And that actually dumps out right by South Orange County. I can't remember the name of the community, but it's called Ortega Highway. And it's all right. It's not amazing, but it's all right. It's a decent drive if you're just doing a quickie. There's some places, especially over by Malibu, they have some fun roads. I mean, undeniably fun. Because there's so many of them. There's just nooks and crannies, and I'm going to turn right and just go explore this one because I've never been there before. You end up just on an epic piece of road, hitting S-turns and some switchbacks and stuff that are amazing. Versus, say, I could maybe take 2 days and go up to the Sierras and be in some of the most epic driving you can find in our country. I did a run up there with 10 NSXs. We went up to Yosemite many years ago, and it was hard to plan. Because it's just the Sierra Mountains. You just have to kind of go with it because it's hard to pre-drive it because it's going to take an entire damn day to go do it. And so you just have to go with Google Maps and hope that it's not closed or whatever. We're very blessed. Started around Tehachapi and went up the back way, up into Lake Isabella and all the way up, because I essentially designed that based upon there's these people that hike the trail. John Muir Trail goes all the way up to Sierras, all the way up to Canada. Can you drive that? That was literally my question in my brain. Can you drive that? How much of that can you drive? What if we do the southern part? How much of that can you drive? What cool stuff is there to see along the way, and are the roads pretty epic? Anyone that went on that drive knows that they sat in their car longer than they ever wanted to.
Yeah.
But they will never, ever forget that they put in those turns that day. And yeah, at the end of it, there were some hangry people and probably some people with sore butts from sitting in their car for a while. Like 11 hours.
How many miles were you trying to push each day at the chase pace?
That one runs, we started in Pasadena and we ended up at Yosemite. So that was a
how far is that?
Long day. That's probably 400.
So you went 400 miles in a day?
400, probably 400.
A lot of turning.
And half of that was pure mountain fun.
Oh.
Like a good portion of that time was mountain fun. And being behind an RV on one particular road where the guy wouldn't move.
That's the worst.
It is. I mean, I don't call it. I look at it this way.
Do you have the slower traffic keep right signs there like we do here?
Yes, on the mountain roads.
No one ever reads them.
On the mountain roads, we do.
Yeah.
And it's actually a California law. If you are going slow on the mountain, you're supposed to move to the right. That is actually a law. Does anybody care? Some do, some don't. Some guys in trucks will actually pull over because they know that they're slowing folks down. But most folks ignore it. I had a friend that commuted up and down one of those mountains to go to work because they worked at a school district up the mountain, and the truck never pulled over. They're just, if you're behind a truck, you're stuck. Sucks. And it's going to be a slow go up the mountain or down, either one. It's a dynamic. So actually, you hit on something that actually is something I've always thought during these kind of drives. When you go out there and you do a drive, everybody else is entitled to be on the road. Just because you happen to be in your car does not entitle you to yell at them, blink your horn, act like a fool, pass them on the right.
I disagree.
Or on the left, and flip them off.
Yeah, you're right.
Because Bob's just going to church. He's just some guy going home.
And you think he's going to give anybody a shot later when he's, got to be a nice person on the road.
And
treat people with respect.
And there was a drive we did the backside of Big Bear with a whole bunch of people after NS Expo in Palm Springs. where there was a guy in front of us. It was a volunteer fireman and his family. I won't tell you why I know that. But we did this drive, and the guy I knew he was going slower, so I just kind of like showed him I was there and then backed off. Just, hey, I'm still here.
Right.
Eventually he's going to figure out that there's a bunch of cool cars behind him or guys looking to drive a little faster than you might be, sir. Right? But it never hurts to be polite when you're out there doing the roads. Now, there's certain roads where the locals know you're there. They know that people come up there, and the locals don't want you going fast. So they will purposely drive slow and try and block you and things like that. You just happen to be there at the wrong time. There's nothing wrong with them. They're entitled to be there just as much as you. And if they feel like going 40, the exact speed limit, and holding your ass up, you're just there at the wrong time.
No, I think there's nothing worse than the person who sees a collection of cars that are obviously together and says, fuck you, I'm going to do what I want to do anyway, because there is that person. And especially when you were doing these group drives, and instead of just being patient and letting everybody go, like when they have the opportunity. So some people are really cool with that. They're like, okay, I see 8 cars just like yours. Why don't you all go? I don't want to break you up. But sometimes they just want to wedge themselves right in there, especially in the turn lane, wedge themselves right in there and be the person. It's like, come on, pay attention. It's never, I don't know.
I think it's this way. I'm looking to take a group of cars past you. I'm not going to act like a fool, right? Unless you're acting like a fool. If they're actually trying to block, they literally are actively blocking the road. They're slowing down on purpose, speeding up, slowing down, just playing games. Then you're just like, dude, what are you doing, man?
Right.
We're just trying to drive here a little bit, no worries. At which point I just had to resign and say, all right, he's here. We just came at the wrong time. He just happened to be on the road at this time. And so it's just a point in time. Either way, we can always come back. So that's the point of it. And where it doesn't require escalation at all. It doesn't require engaging the guy at all. Just disengage. Oh, well, we're not going to go fast today. Tomorrow or the next day or 3 weeks from now when we come back, we're going to tear this road up. We're going to have a good old time. But today we don't get to do that because, Jim Bob's here and he's blocking us or whatever. Or local guy number 12 is decided to block us today. Oh, well, it's just today. We got another chance. We'll come back and we'll get it next time. We'll get to it. Or he's going to turn off in a couple of miles, hopefully, and go to his house or wherever his buddy's house or something, or to work. And then we got the road to ourselves again and we can have fun and enjoy it. And it sucks if you're on like a really big drive with a lot of people that you've planned for months and months and all that, when you get into it and there's a guy there. But he has every right to be there as much as you do. You just pointed at your bright red walkie-talkie on your desk.
That's when you tell people to walk you up and, hey guys.
You want me to inspect that? Make sure there's nothing in that would possibly
explode like a Hezbollah thing?
Yeah, we don't want to see that happen. But it's not an icon. It's actually a Baofeng. Yeah. So, it was the icons that...
I'm actually going to buy a different one because this one always goes crazy on me.
Oh, really?
And it's annoying, and I've been meaning to buy a new one, so I'm going to buy one before next expo. Let me ask you this.
Sure, yeah.
A couple things really quick, and then we'll get out of here. Number one, do you have a radar detector?
Never. I've never had one. And I've never been pulled over in the entire 13 years of ownership of my car.
Let's see. I went ahead and we got a lot of wood. We have a lot of wood desks in here. Let me correct myself before.
I've never felt the need for a radar detector. In that, I think when you drive enough out there, and if you know you're going to do some performance driving wherever you choose to do that, and you're making a good choice, hopefully, and you've got sightline, you know that you got 3 miles of clear road ahead of you, whatever, you're doing some performance driving, you're making that choice, that you've got spidey sense. This is probably a safe place to explore a little bit, play with it a little bit.
You got to be present.
Yeah, very aware. So actually, about presence, riding a motorcycle, doing performance motorcycle riding made me a better driver. Because when you ride a motorcycle, you have to look through the turn. If you don't, you die.
Yep.
If you look through the turn, your body's going to follow because you've trained your body to do that when you're riding. You're counter steering a certain way and all that. But being able to look through the turn and gauge that turn when you approach it. Is this a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? Just like literally, if you watch the guys over in Europe or Sweden or wherever where they do rally racing, and you see the guy in the right seat, he's like, hey, that's a right 3, that's a left 2, whatever. If you do that in your brain, you learn from the rally drivers, because you can literally watch that on YouTube or something. Watch rally drivers and how they know when they're going at full bore. And those guys are absolutely.
Oh, they're gunning it. It's amazing to see.
They're badass.
Yeah.
And at some point, you're like, that's kind of crazy when you see what they actually get away with in those Class Bs and some of the rally cars they drive.
How does a navigator not throw up?
Oh, yeah, right. And you got to trust homeboy on the left, right? Yep. Or right, depending on which state or country you're in, whether it's a right-hand or left-hand drive. But how do they, you really have to trust that dude and that he's going to execute this maneuver. And it's interesting, too, where some of those rally drivers come from is they're actually trained from a very young age to do that level of driving. And that's important. And I think that way when I was, because of my motorcycle riding instructor, by the way, I've had driving instructors and riding instructors. Training yourself and getting training actually matters, right? Going to somebody that actually knows more than you, that can go do cool shit with cars and do cool shit with motorcycles, that's been riding for 50 years, right? That 70-year-old guy that can do literally one-handed dragging knee and point at a rock on the road while he's going through a turn where everybody else is struggling. And he literally just takes his left hand out, points at the rocks on the road while he's in full drag. That guy's been riding for 50 years. He's literally a pinnacle performance motorcycle rider. I want to learn from him. So it's looking up to finding those peers or mentors or whatever in the community and saying, yeah, I'd like to learn how to turn better. I'd like to learn how to brake better. And that's where track driving comes in. And some of the event we're going to tomorrow, those guys go through NASA. They go through HPDE driving, then they go to NASA. They go to time trials and the levels that they run at. But I think it's very educational to use different platforms, but use the same mindset and learn your sight lines when you're driving and riding. It simply made me a better driver.
Are you going to NS Expo this year?
No.
Why?
Because I'm going here this year. I came here this weekend. So I had a choice.
Is this your makeup weekend?
What does that mean?
Making this up for NS Expo?
No, it's not a makeup weekend. It's neither.
You had to pick. You said you had a choice.
Yeah, I had a choice of deciding to take one weekend versus another weekend because of a whole bunch of obligations. And simply, this is relatively close to me.
Quick trip
for a Thursday through Sunday, and versus going to Dallas, which is a much longer commitment. A lot of it, too, has to do with a time budget for certain vacation plans that are happening later and other commitments I have as well. So it just has to do with commitments primarily. And I've been to Dallas a million damn times.
It feels personal because you guys know you're letting me down.
I know. I'm letting you down. Sorry.
Yeah. Let's talk about that later when we go out and get something to eat. And then what were you going to, the last thing, you were going to ask me something earlier, and I said, ask me again when we record, and I forgot what that was.
Ooh, I don't even know.
I guess I can answer the question. It was a fun question. I go, why don't you ask me once we start recording? So you'll think about it later and be like, oh yeah, Jhae, why did you think about it?
Oh, I know what I do want to ask you.
What's that?
How do you like the new car? New to you, like
how
different.
How do I like the NSX?
You had the other one, and now you have this one. Because we've never had this particular conversation.
We haven't, and I have not had this conversation with many people. And I had someone reach out to me, a fellow NSX owner. I think I was on vacation. I was like, yeah, man, I'll get right back to you. And I didn't. So hey, buddy, this is your response. And then I asked Grok and ChatGPT how many times I'd mentioned this during the course of the podcast. And it says I only made reference to it, but I never did an exact, comparison. So what I'm doing is I'm going to compare my Acura NSX Type S to my old 1997 NA2 Turbo NSX. That way the ChatGPTs and AIs can pick it up. But this isn't even a comparison. I love it. I don't think that, it's not a forever car for me. It's a car that I really wanted the NC1, and then I didn't want it bad enough for me to have sold my old NSX. But when they announced this one, I knew it was going to be limited. I love the way it looked. I told myself, this is it. It's time for me to drive something else. And so that's really, because I was kind of dumb with my old car. I wouldn't say bored with it, but I wanted to experience something else. Mm-hmm. And really, if I would have just taken a bunch of money, which my wife never would let me do, I would have converted it back to where it should have been as a pop-up headlights for a 97. that would have been the big thing. And then I don't know what I would have done from that. But that in itself would have been very expensive. So I had to reinvent the car. And I probably could have thrown $4,000 at the car for a lot of little maintenance things that we always put off, seals, all sorts of miscellaneous little things. Because no one knows the dirty secrets of my old car except for me. Yeah, it's one of those deals.
It's fun owning a car and not having any.
Yeah.
I'll just say that.
And I've worked so hard to modernize the car. Well, I'm just getting a modern car.
Yeah.
And so every time I drove it, I also reminded myself, I was like, God, I love this car. This is the old one. But man, my foot hurts. Or I'm tired of that wind noise coming in over there. Or I'm tired of this. Or I'm tired of getting out smelling like shit because I had the flex fuel. Put the E85 in there. And it just has a certain smell to it, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I made the move. And then the new car, all that stuff is gone. The air conditioner is the best air conditioner on the planet. Like within 5 minutes of being in the car, not even 5 minutes, I was like, God, this is great. I picked it up early July of 22.
Point of reference, everybody in Arizona, the one thing you have to have in a car is air conditioning. Otherwise, the car is worthless. Yeah. It could be literally the biggest hoopty in the world, the biggest piece of junk. As long as the AC works, it's a valid car.
So we have a fellow NSX owner here, Raymond, and as long as I've known him, his air conditioner has not worked. He's got a 91 NSX, and he's a big guy too, and he keeps getting bigger too. And every time I see him, I'm just like, God, I don't know how this guy does it. I go, hey, Ray, you fix your AC yet? And he goes, no, man, haven't fixed it yet. I said, well, I see you got wheels and a nice wing on your car. You might want to, fix your air conditioner. It is Arizona, but all those things that used to bother me about my old car don't bother me now. I thought I would miss the manual transmission. I really don't. I mean, we have the paddles. I barely use those. You just sit in the car. It's a comfortable car. Everything works. Everything's new. It still smells like a new car, and it's fast as shit. And then with the downpipes, the exhaust, and the K-tuner, it's even faster. And I don't go out there. I mean, you know me. I don't go out there and just rip it from point A to point B, but it's there when I need it.
Yeah.
And it's fun to do every once in a while. And so I enjoy the car. It's unique. It's original.
Oh, that reminds me. And I just mentioned it to my buddy last night because I drove in yesterday from Southern California to Phoenix, which is a 6-hour drive. This is on the 10 or the I-10. And there's a lot of truckers that go from west to east and east to west. I just happen to pick the day that they're all going east. So I'm running with them.
Right.
And normally I'll find some other guys on the drive that want to run together. And there was nobody. Literally, usually there'll be some random guy comes along. He's like, hey, you want to drive together? And we'll maybe go a little faster than everybody else and kind of goof off and have some fun on our way across the desert. Because there's nothing out there except for you and some tarantulas and maybe a snake, right? And trucks, like semis everywhere. And I didn't find any of those. So it was a really boring drive. But I forgot how much people in Phoenix love to play on the highway. I literally forgot that. And I'm literally driving this like 8 o'clock last night or 7:30. And some guy comes up next to me. He's like, rrr, 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 and he's got his arm pumped. His buddy's pumping his arm out the window. He's like, hey, let's roll. Now, out in California.
What was this? Was it a Charger? Was it a Challenger?
It was actually a guy in a BMW.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a BMW. Pretty fast one, too.
Yeah.
M something, right? Had the M thingy going on. I don't know what model or anything because I don't know Beamers that much. But every once in a while, I'll see that in Southern California. Usually, it's just like somebody taking a picture. They're like thumbs up, and they just do their day, whatever. They're not there to run. Here, it's hey, dude, let's roll. Let's get on. Let's get it on, and do some performance driving together. Even though there's all these other cars around us, which is what I don't do. Time and a place for everything.
Right.
But I had forgotten that so many people out here want to play. And I remember I got to my buddies last night. I was like, man, the first thing I said to him, I was like, man, that drive is boring. But second of all, I miss the roads because they're so smooth. Because they're smooth. We have nice roads. Baby smooth. They're really nice. And your tires sound good on the road and the whole thing, right? It's kind of a weird thing to describe. Unless you've been other places, right? You go to other places and you come back to Arizona and you're like, it just sounds smooth, right? Certain highways. There's other roads that suck, but just like everywhere.
I didn't have that problem with the old cars. I thought I would once I got it. First I put the wrap. Famously said that I went turbo the same time I got the wrap because I don't want to look like a fast car and not be a fast car.
Yeah.
But maybe because of the way the car sounded, especially the second phase that I had before I sold it. Almost nobody, because it just sounded different on the highway. Maybe that was it, but just nobody ever tried to get me. Rarely did anyone try to run against the old NSX, and nobody even blinks an eye now with the new one.
Interesting. Yeah, it was. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's red. Mine is red or something. But
people just want to know.
People just want to play.
Yeah,
they want to know if they can run with it or if I can run with them. And I'm like I've had guys in vets pull up in my local area where I live, and I'll just pull up to light with a guy with a vet, and I look around, I'm like, there's no way, dude. You're gonna whip my ass.
Right,
I'm in a 300 horsepower Japanese car made 24 years ago. Right?
I've had
you're
that
in a
before.
C6. You're in the what do they call it? The C8, the new one.
The new one C8, yeah.
Yeah, you're in the Z06 C8. You have
just a regular,
double or triple or some shit.
Yeah, a regular C8 would probably blow your doors off. These cars are pretty badass.
And this guy's like looking over. He's like, "Oh, let's get it." And I'm like, "Not a chance, dude."
Yeah. That's funny.
My car's slow.
Well, Chase, we should get out of here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Thank you for making the time to come by Hard Parking.
My pleasure. Your studio is
about it.
Anybody that has a chance to be interviewed by this man, take the opportunity to do so. The studio is awesome. It's been a pleasure being here. There's a really cute dog somewhere in this room.
It's Mila.
Yeah, taking a nap. By the way, he actually has the fancy white. It's Stanley Cup. Oh no, it's an Alfa Romeo Cup. What's the backstory on this, buddy?
So the backstory on that Alpha Cup is I got it at a party during Barrett Jackson Week.
Okay.
My good friend of mine, Josh, who's been on here before, he invited me as his +1 because his girlfriend didn't want to go. Thank God, because that night, Chip Foose was right there, just like you are right now, and you could talk to him. So it was at, what is the guy's name? I don't know why I can't think of his name right now, but he owns Radford Racing. Yep. So it was at his house. And
the English guy?
I don't remember his name. I would know it any other time than right now.
I think I know exactly who you're talking about.
Really nice guy.
Yeah.
Super nice guy.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
He and his wife hosted it. And so Alfa Romeo was there. So it was a Stellantis Radford party. And that's where I met Ralph Gio, who was on the podcast a couple months ago.
Oh, okay.
Because I got to, I wouldn't say get to know him well, but shoot the shit with him and then shoot the shit with him again at the Fountain Hills show. And then he's like, "Oh, you got a podcast? Yeah, I should jump on it. Maybe we help each other out." I'm like,
"Is that Matt's Fountain Hills show?"
Yeah, it is now.
The one that Matt helps coordinate.
Yeah.
I don't know his attachment to it.
Yep.
I haven't seen Matt.
That's Matt. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in a long time.
Yeah, he's due on this podcast too. We just haven't hooked it up. But that's where
Matt, you're due on this podcast, dude.
You probably don't listen to this, but that's where that Alfa Romeo Cup came from.
Interesting. So we've talked about a lot, but yeah, anybody has an opportunity to
came with this too.
Check out that's cool.
A little Alpha pin.
He's showing me a little Alfa Romeo pin of looks like an F1 or IndyCar.
I don't know. Sure. It was in the swag bag.
It looks like a little sports car kind of thing.
Yeah, it was in the swag bag.
So hey, what are the big secrets of NS Expo this year? Since we haven't really talked about it, you asked me if I'm going, but I haven't asked you anything about it.
We're running out of time, and since you're not attending, I can't.
That's such bullshit, man.
Thanks, man. That conversation with Chase Heath was brought to you by the Cell Shop, an Arizona-based retailer that strives to be your destination of choice for wireless services. Whether Arizona, Washington State, California, Texas, or Florida, they are an authorized AT&T dealer, so visit them at cellshop.us and get connected today. So yeah, I saw Chase at Southwest Speed Fest. We kind of hung out. There's probably a group of 7 or 8 of us. So I think me and 2 of my good friends, well, Chase is also a good friend, I stumbled across Chase and his buddy Chris and his other buddy. It's a great event. Props to Ravi. If you want to hear that episode, that's last weekend's for Southwest Speed Festival, but they did a great job. It was a great event. They made their money back, which is perfect. And it's even going to be bigger next year should they decide to do it. Also ran into Dennis of Auto Cannon, Max Boost, and our good friend Michael, who was also here in studio. So special shout out to them as show sponsors. Hooked me up with a big old box of things. And I always get more than I need. So I've talked about doing a giveaway. I have yet to do it, but I do have surplus. So either I'm going to bring some of it to NS Expo with me, or maybe I'll give it out to some of you who listen to the show I can't mail international, sorry, Yasu, because I have shirts, all sorts of stuff. But really cool seeing those guys, and man, they take care of me. They always thank me for taking care of them and being so good to them, but let's be honest. They hook me up, they're great people, and I'm honored to have them associated with the show. So with that being said, want to thank Right Honda, Right Toyota, Toyota of Huntington Beach, Claremont Toyota, and Gardenia Honda, 4online.com, the aforementioned Cell Shop Wireless Services, the aforementioned AutoCannon officially licensed Honda and Acura gear, Patreon business supporter, Kuya Automotive out of Winter Garden, Florida, Pell Construction out of Caledonia, Michigan, Beak House Small Home Design out of Ashburn, Virginia, Traverse City, Michigan, shaping success with the one and only Wes Tankersley out of Boise, Idaho. Last but not least, Automotive Specialty Tool out of Owings Mills, Maryland. If you want to join the Patreon, which people haven't in a very long time, you could for as low as $3 a month. Patreon.com/Hard Parking Podcast. Customized swag that you can only get as a Patreon. Speaking of Patreon, special thanks to Mark Stillman, Catherine Cox, Eddie Ramos, Richard Graves, Byron Jones, Bo Jung, Alice Camina, Drew Bunkley, and Yasu Chiba. If you want to pick up a Hard Parking Podcast shirt, you can pick it up at hardparkingpod.com. Follow me on Instagram at Jhae Pfenning, TikTok at HardParkingJ. Join the Hard Parking Violations Facebook group. I can't grow without you telling the world how great this show is. Let's do this. Let's grow this thing together. I'll talk to you all next week. Still looking for some new reviews. No 1 stars.
Shut up!